Hello and welcome to Bread and Thread, a podcast about food and domestic history. I'm Liz.
And I'm Hazel. We are two friends who studied archaeology together and love history and food and making things. So what have you been making recently?
I got hold of various dried fruits and things, because I've decided to start, rather than buying all the different, tea blends, because I do currently have, 30 kinds of tea, I'm just gonna buy leaves and, whisk and do my own mixes.
That's quite ominous, like just miscellaneous tea.
Well, I've got various kinds of leaves, and then I've got some dried fruits, some dried peel, pink peppercorns, because it turns out that's really nice in tea,
Oh wow.
and some burdock root.
Oh, that sounds like a fun time. Just like
It's gonna be fun to play around and just make all sorts of concoctions.
making potions.
It's gonna be good. It feels very witchy.
I like that. But like wholesome because it's tea.
Yeah.
Awesome.
What about you?
I haven't really cooked that much, apart from, the average stuff, but it's been ages since I baked anything. I need to do some baking. I need to make some actual good hot cross buns. Because the last ones I made a few weeks ago, I'm pretty sure I used the same yeast that I used last year, and that's why it didn't work.
That might be it, yeah.
Yeah, so I've got some new yeast. Yeah, apart from that, just kind of been doing a lot of knitting and things, but I haven't just been working on ongoing projects. I am starting an embroidery project soon, which for me is exciting because I haven't done that much embroidery, and I normally like to have a pattern, and I don't for this one because it's a piece for my grandma's birthday. It's going to be like an embroidered portrait of her, using a picture of her when she started nursing in the 50s, because it's her 90th birthday this year. So I'm going to attempt to embroider a person.
That's awesome.
It's like an important thing to her. She talks about it a lot. So I was like, oh, maybe she'll like this. Oh no, now I have to do this, and I've got 2 months, so we'll see.
But yeah, you've got 2 months.
Yeah, it should be fine. I mean, it's not going to be massive. I'm not doing like a tapestry.
Can you imagine, though?
I can imagine. I mean, I was worried that like she might not want a picture of herself on the wall, but I personally would love a full-size wall tapestry of me looking very cool. I would hang that up.
Who wouldn't? I feel like that's the rule. You're only allowed a picture of yourself if it's massive.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely precedent for that. Like, lots of ye old rich people had big paintings of themselves in their entrance halls, right?
Oh yeah, preferably over a fireplace.
Yeah, preferably with like one boob out.
Just the one.
Tasteful, you know?
Your favourite boob, like that one mistress of Charles II. I don't remember which one.
Oh, was there one who like, like your good side? There's
Yeah.
always the same one out. I love it. I don't know which one my favorite is.
I mean,
But as this is a family podcast,
yeah, I was gonna say we should. Let's move on.
Okay, what are we talking about today?
So you know how I do like folk music history YouTube things?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of the ones I've been doing recently have been from Broadsides, so I thought I'd do Broadsides.
Ooh,
Because
excellent.
I didn't actually know that much about them.
Okay, so I mean, I know what they are in that I know that we're not talking about a ship firing lots of cannons, right?
Correct.
Okay, we're talking about music sheets.
We are. So they're called broadsides because they're big pieces of paper. Not
Oh, okay.
particularly surprisingly, I suppose. Like how you get broadsheet newspapers, which are just the ones with really big pages.
Oh, suddenly that makes sense.
Um, yeah, so we're in the 17th century. People have just got access to, in Europe, I should say, have just got access to movable type printing
Ooh,
and
shiny.
just easy printing generally. Um, so suddenly it's very easy to distribute things like flyers, news, sometimes just doggerel.
Just
Um,
any random rubbish.
yeah, yeah, political stuff, woodcut illustrations for a penny a go. Like you would have people in village squares or wandering the streets of London selling just sheets of paper with any or all of these things on them for a penny.
That's not bad.
But they are probably most well known now for the ballads.
Okay,
Um,
so like the popular music of the day was something you could just like buy on the street.
oh yeah, or even just see. Sometimes it would just be like pasted up like a poster.
Oh, that's cute.
Um, often not with musical notation. Um, but apparently some of them would say like to the tune of Greensleeves and things like that, like the more well known songs.
Oh, that makes sense because I guess maybe not a lot of people are going to be learning music notation
Hmm.
unless you're like a nice young lady. Um,
Who would probably be buying books of sheet music and not the terrible vulgar street music.
oh, not the popular music.
Well, some of them are about ladies being pregnant or gentlemen having their way with ladies, and I don't know what this voice is.
I don't know what you're talking about. This one is clearly just about an agricultural machine.
I mean, I've told you about my favorite ballad, which let's just say uses carpentry as a euphemism. Um, so yeah, there was a company of stationers in London. So at this point, stationers are they sell stationery, they print and publish things. Um, so there was a stationers company in London in the latter half of the 16th century. Tried to register all of the ballads in circulation.
All of them.
Yeah, they recorded over 2,000.
Oh, wow.
Um, but it's generally considered that there were probably more than that.
Hmm.
Because again, you could just get a whole load printed and sell them for a penny, paste them up on the walls of pubs.
So were these who was publishing these? Or was it just like individual people like, oh, I could make some money from this?
So it seems to have evolved from sort of the concept of the wandering musician from minstrels. So you'd have what were known as balladeers actually getting the songs printed and selling them to make a bit of extra money,
Oh, that is a fantastic name.
including like singing songs in the streets and then selling the sheet music, almost like buskers selling CDs.
That's good advertising, I guess.
It is, and I mean it works for buskers.
Mm.
Um, but the stationers that I mentioned, they had this basically because they were printing and publishing, they just had total control.
Hmm.
So you'd have, you know, Protestant stationers printing bad things about the Catholics, and Catholic stationers printing bad things about the Protestants.
I see.
And a lot of them did get quite political, the broadsides, because, but again, this wasn't just songs. Although there's one that may be a poem, maybe a song, called Cromwell's, I believe this word is pronounced panegyric.
What is that?
So it's a form of complimentary verse. It's sometimes used synonymously with eulogy, but it's not necessarily after the person's died.
Okay, so
except this one was published in Ireland. And if you know anything about Cromwell's activities in Ireland, you will know that it was incredibly satirical.
Okay.
It was very much a roast of Cromwell. The text of it's available a lot of places online, but it's a full-on roast. It's like, well, he'll be very busy keeping his big nose in everyone's business and all that kind of thing. It's like not actually saying anything outright against him, because you couldn't really in Ireland. If he got caught, that would be a problem. So it's and that's one of the most widely distributed ones, we think.
Okay. Oh, fantastic. Well, everybody loves a bit of making fun of the people in power.
Especially the ones that do a colonialism on you. That was the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Prepositions. It's been a long day. So yeah, by the 1600s, you also have what are called chapmen, which again I love. Possibly the etymology of the surname Chapman.
Okay. Is that to do with like chapbooks?
Exactly, because you would have people would either buy several and bind them together themselves, or publish these chapbooks. So that's just a short, almost like a pamphlet of these songs, poems, etc. Because with the broadsides being so big, you could often like fold them up into these little booklets, or cut and bind them into chapbooks. So you had chapmen actually selling the booklet itself, rather than the individual broadsides, by the sort of late 1600s, early 1700s. And Robert Burns and Samuel Pepys are both known to have published these chapbooks.
Okay. I guess Robert Burns seems like the kind of person that would, being, like a poet, but Samuel Pepys is a surprising one.
I mean, we know he just liked to document things.
Yeah.
That was kind of his whole jam. But I mean, Pepys is probably responsible for a lot of the 1600s songs that we still know about, because he was a well-known figure, so his collections survived.
Oh, fantastic. So there's an actual original large collection of them.
I don't know if there's a whole collection of them, but he was definitely a big force in preserving a lot of these songs from that time.
Okay.
A lot of which were a lot more sort of everyday, because you have these big dramatic ballads that the rich people would be singing, very opera type stuff. But then you have a lot of the broadside ballads. Again, a lot of them very innuendo laden, or sometimes even just outright, or just about drinking or being sad that you're poor. Just all of our favorite folk motifs, I think, pretty much show up in broadsides.
Okay. Is that why sometimes you get so many different versions of the same song? Because it might have been published by multiple people.
Well, because I mean, folk music is ultimately an oral tradition, I think,
Mhm.
especially in this period.
But I would have
So
thought that
so you have it kind of spreading and changing as people move around, and then all these different versions get published
mhm.
that all end up as either different but very similar songs or, 200 versions of the same song, like, all have the same title and different words, and sometimes also different tunes because, again, you don't really have a melody included. Although
I
apparently at the turn of the 18th century, some of them did have, like, staves of music printed on them,
okay.
but they were largely decorative. Like, I was reading I think it was the National Library of Scotland article on Broadsides, but I read a lot of articles about Broadsides this week, um, was saying that most of the musical notation on Broadsides sounds absolutely awful because it's just what looks nice. Kind of like, how you get, like, decorative runes on things, and then if you try and read
Yeah.
them, it's not even pronounceable?
I guess it's just a way to be like, hey, this is music.
Mm,
This is a
it's
song.
shorthand. But again, most people wouldn't have been able to read music. I feel like most people can't read music now even, 'cause
Yeah,
you learn it in school and then you forget.
yeah. And I suppose today, if you're learning an instrument, you tend to start with the learning to read music, and then like you learn that along with the instrument. But um, back, in the past when a lot of people did play an instrument, like it wasn't just a rich people thing. But that would be something that you would learn by ear first, and
Mm.
then maybe later you would learn some like notation. Um, but that was a tradition that was mostly passed on just by ear. So it makes sense that there would be this big demand for songs, um, and for like new music to play, but using the tunes that people would already know.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, like I said, with it being an oral tradition, you also have, you know, you hear someone singing something, you mishear a word or you don't quite hear something, you just stick in what fits, and
Hmm.
again, you end up with 200 versions of the same song.
I mean, I know I do that a lot just listening to the radio. Like, in Mr. Brightside, when it sounds like turning snakes into the sea, but it's not.
Oh, yeah.
I've been singing that for like 10 years.
I mean, until I was, like, 12, I thought that the lyrics to "Eye of the Tiger" was, "It's the cream of the fight." Like, the cream is the best bit. I thought it was like, it's the "You're the best one, you're the cream of the crop." So, yeah, I'm sure that kind of thing must have happened in the 17th century as well.
Oh, yeah, people are people.
But, yeah, if you want a big collection of them, a man called Sir Frederick Madden in the mid-19th century collected 30,000 ballads.
That's a lot of ballads.
Yeah. Um, I mean, that just shows you how popular and widespread these were.
Where did he keep them all?
Um, I don't know, but apparently they're now in the Cambridge University Library. I think at least some of them are accessible online. I may have a poke around later.
Oh, awesome.
Um, if it is available online, I will tweet a link to it. But yeah, I feel like it actually might have been easier to collect them by Madden's time because you could also get them in what were called slip sides, which is just a slip of paper with words in, which were actually sometimes printed in newspapers.
Oh, okay. Could you also get, I guess, like published collections of them by this point?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the sort of increasing availability of cheap books is possibly to blame um, for Broadsides dying out in the UK. I will get to why I said the UK in a minute. Um,
Ah,
well, because, they cost a penny, but you're in the 1850s at this point, you have penny dreadfuls. So it's like, are you gonna spend your penny on a couple of song lyrics, or a penny dreadful, or an installment of a novel, or a magazine because fashion is becoming more and more of a thing beyond
okay.
the very richest at this point.
So you've got choices now.
Yeah. And like I said, you do still occasionally find songs printed in newspapers, um, especially sort of ones that someone's written to commemorate some big event, which mostly didn't gain the same popularity as the earlier ballads. Um, but yeah, they die out by sort of the late Victorian period, really, in the UK. In America, you get broadsides of hymns
Okay.
right right from when they first started being able to easily print things over there, um, right the way up till actually the 20s, like the 1920s,
Oh wow.
both as broadsides either handed out or pasted up in or around churches, and also new hymns being printed in newspapers in the 1920s,
Okay.
because it's just a much more loudly Christian country than the UK, I think, and always has been.
Yeah, I guess. Wow.
Um, yeah, which I always wondered how hymns spread around when people weren't moving as much. I guess broadsides are it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely we've got at home a couple of early 20th century songbooks that I think at least one of them has quite a few hymns in. So I guess like if you hear one in church and you're like, oh, I like this song, it
It's
kind of
like
becomes something. Yeah, this hymn slaps. You're probably just going to be singing it around anyway, like not just in church. Like I feel like an example of this is there's a song called "The Old Churchyard," which started off as an American hymn. I think it was written in the late 19th century. It's not super old, but now it's become kind of part of the folk tradition. Like people sing it just as a folk song.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think things tend to, if it slaps, it'll spread.
Although that's what happened with a lot of sort of spirituals and gospel songs, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. There's quite a few spirituals in these old these old songbooks as well, like hymns, popular songs, just all that kind of thing.
Mm. I mean, of course, that kind of thing is then what evolved into most popular music now. Like most popular genres of music come from that spread of black religious music in the US. But
Hmm.
that's a whole other thing that we are very much not experts on in any way.
We'll leave that to a music history podcast.
Mm. But yeah, like apparently broadsides still get published now, is what I
Okay.
didn't know. Kind of like how how there's still fandom zines floating about and you just don't really think about it until you see someone mention one.
Right.
Like these small folk traditions often don't die out, they just become smaller and smaller and smaller until you
Hmm.
basically have to already be in the know to know about them. But you can still find them.
Wow.
I don't know where, I could not find out where, but I found a lot of sort of folk music websites saying that Broadsides are still a thing, which is incredibly exciting because there's part of me that's just like, one day I'll just be walking through town and I'll see one.
There's something really nice about that thought, just having, somebody putting music up on the walls in the street, for anyone to read and work out how to play.
Yeah, like, bring this back as a bigger thing.
Yeah, can we?
Like, I see so much, like, small independent artists are cool, but rather than seeing a sticker with someone's name written in a weird font on it, I think I would rather see, like, a slip side.
Yeah, that's a great marketing technique, actually. All you indies out there, go start pasting your music up on walls.
Well, yeah, I mean, Broadsides, as I said, often had woodcut illustrations on as well. So, like, partner up with an artist that you know, get them to do some cool pictures for it, post your songs up on a wall.
Ah,
Let's do this.
yeah.
Let's bring
That
this
would be
back.
really cool.
I'm just gonna turn the light on. So yeah, that is the history of the Broadsides, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who always assumed when a song was called a broadside that it used to be sung on boats.
I did think they might be like nautical based sea shanties, but
I mean, I'm sure that docks would probably be a good place to go and buy your broadsides.
yeah, I imagine you could get sea shanties on a broadside if they were popular.
I've seen them.
Amazing. I mean, I guess that's one way you could learn new sea shanties.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Hello, I'm Mod Pencil from Probably Bad RPG Ideas. If you'd like to hear discussions of ideas such as what if in my urban fantasy game magic turns out to not be real, and what is the best rules for an ogre dad, then listen to the Probably Bad podcast, which is available on everywhere podcasts are and also YouTube. Or check out our Tumblr and Twitter.
Yeah, since I mentioned it at the start, I'm going to put a link to my folk music YouTube in the episode description. Always be plugging.
I mean, if you've got a podcast, mention the thing.
So, what is this week's local larder?
Okay, I've got a bit obscure for this one. Well, it's not that obscure, depending on where you live, or who your relations are. So, I'm going to be talking about Käsespätzle.
What is that? It's
basically German mac and cheese.
Okay, I do love a bit of mac and cheese.
It is delicious. I was thinking about, regional things I could talk about, and I realized that I tend to talk about ones that are from the UK. So I was like, I should branch out a little bit. And Käsespätzle is something that I have eaten. And also, as I will explain, this is why you can actually eat Schnitzel with noodles. Because I know that's a thing that people tend to be a bit confused about, in The Sound of Music.
Oh yes, sorry.
Julie Andrews
I knew
sings
you were
about
something, but I couldn't place it.
Yeah. Julie Andrews sings about eating Schnitzel with noodles, which, as like anyone who has ever like heard of Schnitzel or been to Austria knows, you don't have Schnitzel with pasta. But I think, okay, I'm not like, I don't have inside intel on this, but I'm pretty sure that the noodles they're referring to are kind of not actually noodles, but it's Spätzle. Käsespätzle is like the mac and cheese version of the dish, which I'll talk about a bit later. But a Spätzle is like a tiny little egg dumpling. I guess it's kind of like pasta, but it's more like doughy pasta. It's like pasta dough, but tiny. Yeah, they're just kind of like stodgy and tasty. And they're eaten kind of all over Europe, in slightly different forms. But they are really popular in Germany and Austria, as something you can have as a side, like with different things. You can have just your Spätzle, your little noodle dumplings with like sauce on it, or you can have it as a side to various dishes. So that's why you can, in fact, have Schnitzel with noodles if you have your Spätzle on the side. Yeah, so it's kind of like it's a handy carb, and the name is thought to come from Spatzen, which is the German for like little sparrow.
Nice.
Yeah, I know, because they're like tiny little, just little pinch of dough, just like little tiny little things. And actually, it's extra adorable because Spätzle is like a cute nickname apparently in Germany. So like my little Spätzle.
Aww.
It's so cute. I want somebody to call me that. So yeah, these dumplings are like the oldest kind of written mention is 1725, but they're thought to be older because just like dumplings. Everyone loves dumplings. But they are particularly associated, or in terms of Käsespätzle, which is cheese dumplings, they're associated with the Schwabian region of Germany, which is a region in Bavaria, in southern Germany. And as with all the best local larders, there is a Spätzle museum
Amazing.
in Schwabia.
I would like to go there, please.
It's in the town of Bad Waldsee, which is just a fantastic name. It's got 3 floors of the history of Spätzle. So, onto the tools. This is one of the things that made me want to do this as a local larder, because the tools for making Spätzle are just some of the most weird-looking things I've ever seen. Like, you can kind of tell it's a kitchen implement, but like it also could be something used for like curling your eyelashes or like an obscure torture device. They're fantastic. I am going to put some pictures of these tools on the Twitter. So the traditional way to make it, which like the purists say it's not a Spätzle unless you use this, is like using a board. So you get the dough and you have this little wooden board and like a slice, and you use those to make the tiny little dumplings. And there are apparently pictures of medieval knights with Spätzle boards, like on campaign. Yeah,
So they've got the priorities.
absolutely. Can't go anywhere without your Spätzle. Yeah, so these are eaten kind of all over Europe, but super, super popular in the Schwabian region of Germany. And they were often made with spelt flour in like the older versions because it grows quite well there. So it's thought that's why there's this connection. And if you've ever had have you ever had spelt bread or like spelt anything?
Yes, spelt bread is the best one to have with tomato soup. My hot take.
That is a hot take I can get behind. Spelt is delicious. I know that like wheat is the main grain that we tend to eat in Europe and America today. But like there were many different kind of grains. I mean, there are many different kind of grains all over the world. But there were many different grains that were used in the past as well. And spelt is one that should totally come back because it is very healthy and also very delicious.
I mean, I think spelt is a kind of wheat, but it's not the kind of wheat that we monoculture.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like different kinds of grains and different variations of them.
It's got I think it's got like it's had, I realized as I started talking that it's hard to describe it. It has like a deeper flavor, like a rounder flavor. If you know what I mean?
I think,
It
yeah, I
good
kind of
for
get
you.
that. It tastes like it's got body.
Tastes like it's got vitamins.
But it's also, I don't know, I guess it tastes a bit sourdough-ish, even if you're not making sourdough. Does that make sense?
I get what you mean, because again, it's that like depth of flavor.
Yeah.
But I mean, most homemade breads are going to taste more like bread than what you get in a supermarket, I think.
More bready bread.
I don't mean that in a hipster way. I just homemade bread is really nice.
It is nice. It's very good. Oh man, especially European breads. Like we don't have great bread in the UK. I mean, we do sometimes, but like if you want great bread, go to a Polish bakery. Hot tip. Yeah. So they were often made using spelt flour in the past, but obviously it's normally wheat that's used today. Although a lot of people in Germany still use spelt flour because it is a bit more available over there. And Käsespätzle, so like the mac and cheese version, is basically these dumplings but fried. So it probably came about where people had them left over the next day. And, you know, like fried rice is like leftover rice and you fry it and you make it into stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of the same deal. Like you have leftover Spätzle and you fry them with onions and maybe some bacon. And then you put cheese on top. And it is delicious.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's like crispy onion and like the cheese and like the little pasta. Oh my gosh.
You're making me hungry.
It's so good. It's so good. I've actually never had like the standard mac and cheese, which also looks like really tasty. But
it is.
But yeah, no, this one is so good. Sorry, I just had like a brain freeze there. You can just cut that bit out. But yeah, if you are interested in making Käsespätzle, I will link to a recipe on the Twitter. And I am also going to put the pictures of these Spätzle tools on the Twitter because they are fantastic. And they have fantastic names. One of them is a Spätzle shop, like a press that you can use. That's another way of making them apart from this board. There's a Knöpflemühle, which looks like some kind of round... It's like a saucepan, but with like an extra handle that you turn around, and it makes... I don't know how it does it.
You're going to have to send me all the spellings of this, by the way, for the transcript, because I do not speak German in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. I don't really speak German, but I can pronounce it enough to sound like I speak it. Which is awkward because I lived in Austria for 6 months while I was teacher training, and like I know a little bit of German, and I'm quite good at pronouncing it. So I would like say something very small to people, and then they would start talking to me like thinking that I spoke German, and I would be like, I'm sorry, I don't know what is happening. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to learn German because my entire job was in English. And now that I don't live there anymore, I'm learning German. So yeah.
I mean, better late than never, I guess.
Exactly. But yeah, you should definitely get a load of these tools. I'll put a link to them on Twitter, as well as a recipe, should you want to make your own Käsespätzle, because it is delicious and dumplingy goodness.
Oh, is this needs to be one of those times that you say you're going to tweet something and actually do?
I
'Cause
absolutely
sometimes
will.
you don't, and I need this.
It's such a good winter food. Like, I had it at a Christmas market, and it was amazing.
So, thank you for listening. If you want to support us, we are on Patreon Patreon doesn't have at. We're on Patreon as Bread and Thread. Where you have there is a Patreon exclusive Discord server. There's monthly recipes, and I might put up my mac and cheese recipe. And if you give us 10, I think it's $10 or £8 a month, we will make a bonus episode about anything you like.
Anything. We are also on Twitter at Bread and Thread, where you can see things that we've been talking about on the podcast in picture form, providing I remember to post them. You can see teasers for upcoming episodes and keep up with what's going on the podcast.
We are also on Tumblr at Bread and Thread. And if you want to say hi or suggest an episode or, I don't know, correct our pronunciation. Not that I'm saying that Hazel has pronounced anything wrong. I genuinely don't know. I just needed a third thing.
I've been doing it very confidently, but I'm probably going to get a lot of Germans like telling me that I've done it wrong.
But yeah, you can email breadandthreadpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks.